On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Ron Johnson Show. I'm your host, Ron Johnson. Starting to get my voice back a little bit. Not there yet, but in today's show, we're going to talk Vikings, wide receivers, history. Justin Jefferson. I brought this up before last week, but Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Randy Moss, Chris Carter. Those are the four. And then I would say Stefan Diggs. Those are my five. But where do they land? Who's one? Well, that's easy. Randy Moss. But Justin Jefferson, Stefan Diggs, Chris Carter. Do you throw Adam Thielen up there just from a statistical standpoint? Do you just throw Chris Carter in because he's old? Do you throw Justin Jefferson at the bottom because he's a rookie or young of the group? Chris Carter probably would still call him Rook. But when you think about that group, there's a lot to dig into there. And then we're going to talk Twins Guardians. Of course, the Twins, everybody was panicking. I was one of them. They got back in this. We'll talk a little bit about that series as well as the series before with the Rockies. And then got to talk about the Vikings training camp coming up. There's some guys, some standouts. ESPN analyst Kevin Seifert, beat writer for the Vikings. He has a guy that he likes on this roster so far. I call it the all shorts team because nobody's really hitting right now. You see the speed take over, and that's when guys can really flash when they have size, speed, or ability. But as I bring Sam Ekstrom in, before we jump into this conversation about these Vikings receivers in the history of Vikings receivers, forever, we got to have a word from our sponsors.
Yes, we do. It's going to get intense with this Vikings receivers conversation, but first I want to tell you about Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question, celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry that is unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Great online tools that help you choose shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Each ring is one of a kind. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On, that's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today.
So I introduce Sam Ekstrom, our producer. As we jump into this conversation, Sam, I'm going to just throw some names out there. And, of course, there's always my top five that we mentioned because these guys come up a lot. Adam Thielen because he's here. Stefan Diggs because he was, historical, the Minneapolis Miracle. You got Justin Jefferson because he's taking the world by storm. You got Randy Moss because he is the GOAT. And then you have Chris Carter because he's just Chris Carter. He did it all, and he did it with flash and flair. You know, he's one of the best trash talkers that you've heard mic'd up. But here's some names that people forget. Anthony Carter, big-time receiver, 7,600 yards. You got Jake Reed, part of the trio. You got Sammy White. I mentioned him last week as well. You got Steve Jordan, so we got to kind of take him out of there because he's technically a tight end, but Steve Jordan's in there. You got Amar Rashad. And Amar Rashad, I drop him off because he's behind Adam Thielen, but this is the caveat. Stefan Diggs, I have to drop him off because he's behind Adam Thielen, but Stefan Diggs did not stay. Stefan Diggs went on and did more. He went on and did great things with another quarterback. So if Stefan Diggs was still here, he probably, because I think with the Bills so far, he's like eclipsed 3,000 yards maybe or something like that. And so if you look at that, then that puts Stefan Diggs around 7,600 career yards, which puts him above Anthony Carter. It puts him top three in these guys. And of course, like Chris Carter, some of his stats, don't populate when you think about what else he's done. You look at Adam Thielen, his 5,900 yards, 5,966 yards. So he's 44 yards shy or 34 yards shy of 6,000. So if Adam Thielen has 1,000-yard season, 1,100, puts him at 7,000. So that puts him above Jake Reed. So I'm going to start there. Because of that, we know Adam Thielen's probably going to have at least 800 to 1,000 yards. He's probably not done either. Jake Reed was never the focal point though, and that's where Adam Thielen was 1A, 1B. Jake Reed was clearly 3. Like, we knew that. When he was with that trio, he was 3. And so to do what he did as 3, maybe if Jake Reed is Adam Thielen, he gets 10,000 yards. So it's a lot to take in. For the sake of argument right away, I'm going to go Moss, Carter, and I want to go Carter again. I mean, this is a tough one, man. This is tough. But I'm going to go there. I'm going to go Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Anthony Carter. Those are my top 3 right now. Sam, where do you go?
So I'm thinking long-term on this. Carter is locked in. Anthony Carter's locked in at 7,600 yards. He's had, I think, a 9-year Vikings career.
Yep.
Adam Thielen, and you alluded to this, he's moving into 4th all-time this year in receiving. If he plays 1 year after that, he's probably moving into 3rd.
Yep.
And then it's Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Adam Thielen. And sometimes I think that people underestimate, like, they've always underestimated Adam Thielen, but they don't realize, like, how spectacular some of the catches he makes are. I mean, he really looks like Chris Carter when he toe taps the sidelines. The one-handed catches are very Moss-like. Like, he is not as gifted physically as those guys, but the stuff he does in the field is unbelievable. So when it's all said and done, 2025, we're having this conversation, I could see Thielen being a dynamic 3rd on the list. I don't think he's passing Moss. He's not passing Carter. But I think he could be your number 3 receiver once it's all said and done. If it stopped this year, if the voting was done, I'd probably go Anthony Carter too. And then I think Jake Reed is probably in that top 5 mix. But I think Thielen has potential to climb. Now the question, Ron, becomes, where's Jefferson? Because Jefferson not only has potential to be top 3, but I think he has potential to be top 2. Like, he could be in that Carter-Moss mix. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and so when you look at Chris Carter, 13,000 yards. Now, Randy Moss is 9,300. Of course, he went on and did some awesome, ridiculous things with Tom Brady. And so that's where I think, we'll have to do another segment on this on just overall career, because we can still do Vikings receivers, but overall career, but we're going to stick with Viking stats. Like, I don't want to cheat this segment. And so when you're just looking at Viking stats, if you did not know, Randy Moss went on and had 23 touchdowns or whatever it was that crazy season with Tom Brady. Chris Carter's had 110 Vikings touchdowns. Randy Moss has had 92. Anthony Carter has had 52. You look at Adam Thielen, he's at 49. So my guess is Adam Thielen's going to have more than 4 touchdowns. And so I can already you hit the nail on the head with that one. I'll give you that one. Thielen's 3. Like, in this right now, Thielen would be 3. And we're just talking Vikings. We're not going to throw the Buffalo Bills stuff in there for Diggs. We can't throw the LSU career in there for Justin Jefferson. We can't throw the, and again, to say we can't throw the New England season in for Moss, in this instance, Chris Carter would be 1. But you look at the dynamicness of Randy Moss in his 113 games with the Vikings compared to Chris Carter's 188. That's where it gets crazy, because he had 15.9 yards a catch. 15.9 yards per catch. He had 92 touchdowns with almost 70 less games. 92 touchdowns to Chris Carter's 110 and 92 less, almost 70 less games. That's only, 18 touchdowns less, but 72. If you give him 72 games with the Vikings or 60 more games with the Vikings, he probably has 150 to 160 touchdowns in Vikings history. So you have to look at that. A quarterback, who knows who you could have had anybody play quarterback with Randy Moss. But I think that's the key. So Moss has to be 1. I mean, it is what it is. We saw what he did with the ball when he had it. His targets even. I mean, he only had 1,000 targets to Chris Carter's 1,500 targets. Receptions, now that's where it gets crazy. Randy Moss, 587 Vikings receptions to Chris Carter's 1,000. So Chris Carter doubled him in purple receptions, but yards did not. Randy Moss is almost, about 2,700 yards less. 2,700 yards less, but 500 catches less. Like, that's crazy that he's missed 500 catches compared to Chris Carter. Let's call it 400 catches even. 2,700 yards less. So that's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Moss, Carter, Thielen, Mars, Carter, Thielen, Anthony Carter, and then I'm gonna go Stefan Diggs. That's where I'm gonna go with my top 5 right now. I'm not even putting Justin Jefferson in this. I can't do it yet. I can't. I know people want to do it. They want to say Justin Jefferson. I was sold on Justin Jefferson at 3. I think from a talent standpoint, you look at game by game, you look at sensational. I can't do it yet, though. In Vikings history, Justin Jefferson is not in the top 5 just yet. I mean, he's going to be there. We know. Well, hey, if he wants $200 million and he has to go somewhere else, because that's the other thing. What if Justin Jefferson next year pulls a Stefan Diggs? Mm-hmm. I think people's mindset change. Like, they don't love him anymore. They love probably the gritty and what he did, but they're not going to love him anymore. They're going to put him out there with the Stefan Diggs crowd of like, he was good when he was here. And then he goes on to the Chargers because Keenan Allen's leaving. Then the Chargers have money and they want to put somebody with Justin Herbert to go crazy. I mean, that's where I would see it going because he's only in his first contract. He could hightail it out of here if he wants 180 to 200 million. And the Vikings would have to figure it out and say, all right, well, let's not let him just go. Let's trade him and get a first-round pick back. Because that's going to be the steps. Like, you probably want to test the waters with him now and with his agent, just kind of put a feeler out there. Hey, if we re-sign him now, what do you want? And then if he throws something out there astronomical, you say, okay, all right. Hey, Chargers, we like to make a trade. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. You have to trade with a team that has some older receivers leaving, maybe. Keenan Allen, he's not done yet, but it's coming. And, or some teams that want a receiver one like that. Maybe Green Bay. I wouldn't do that. That would be nasty.
That'd be a tough one to sell to the fans.
And with Aaron Rodgers, $100+ million, you can't get a $200 million receiver. You already proved that with Devontae Adams. Unless you think Devontae Adams is old, Justin Jefferson is young, and it's worth it. But I don't see that. But that's where I go with that, Sam. That's my thought. I can't put Justin Jefferson in there just yet. I got to go Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Adam Thielen, Anthony Carter, and then Stefan Diggs. Those are the top 5 receivers in Vikings history. Justin Jefferson, I think, is right up there. Because Justin Jefferson hasn't passed, or has he? No, he hasn't passed Percy Harvin yet. And Percy Harvin, we know, he had not concussion, but migraine stuff that, affected his, travel play. Ahmad Rashad, he is in the Vikings Ring of Honor. So if Justin Jefferson, it was at 3,000 yards. So if he has another 1,200, 1,300-yard season and he leaves, he finished with 4,300 yards. So then do you bump him below Ahmad Rashad? Maybe, because he's not here anymore. And he's gone on to have a 2-contract career with some other team. You never know. I don't know what you think about that, Sam, but that's where I go. What are your thoughts on that 5?
Yeah, well, it's a good 5. I think that the guy that we're sleeping on a little bit, and it's not his fault, it's Jake Reed. So this is pre-Moss.
Yeah, and that's
pre-Moss, he had 1,100, 1,300, 1,100. He was that's like a number 1 receiver on a lot of teams.
Right.
He was a number 2 because Chris Carter was there, but they knocked down to the 3rd wide receiver a guy who had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
So
true.
If Moss doesn't come along, Reed's probably finishing with off the charts stats, and he's probably top 3. He just kind of got a bad rap. When Moss comes in, Reed gets demoted, and then he kind of limped his way to the finish after that.
Yeah, because in Diggs' 5 years, he was at – but that's tough for me because in Diggs' 5 years, he was at 4,600, and in Reed's 10 years, almost 11 years, or basically 11 years, he was at 6,400. So,
yeah,
Diggs with 11 years for sure trumps that. And you got to go average years. I'm not going total. I'm going average years for yards. Diggs had a better average, and that's why I put Diggs at 5. I'd say Jake Reed at 6, Justin Jefferson at 7, right now at least. But only time will tell. Well, that'll do it for segment 1. Segment 2 coming up. Stick around for this because Vikings training camp is right around the corner now. We can smell it. Like, July is almost here. When we know when July 4th hits, the players get out of here. They go away for a while. When they come back in late July or mid-July even to start getting ready, it's time. And there's a lot of guys now fighting for roster spots. There's a lot of guys that got drafted that we're like, is this guy going to make it? And then he makes it. And now we drafted new guys where you're like, well, shiny new toy, guys drafted under the old regime. I mean, do you want to draft a bunch of guys and then keep a bunch of guys that were drafted by another guy that didn't do anything? I think that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of guys that were fringe guys. We'll talk about that next on the Ron Johnson Show. Stay tuned for that. So welcome back to the Ron Johnson Show. I'm your host, Ron Johnson. I want to thank everybody that has continued to watch us on YouTube, those that are listening on the podcast. Here we go. Segment's called The Hot Seat. As I bring my producer in, Sam Ekstrom, we're going to play a little hot seat. You've seen this before with coaches. Is this coach on the hot seat? Is this coach on the hot seat? How hot is it? I'm going to let Sam explain it. He's going to throw some players out, and I'm going to tell him where I think their hot seat stands right now. Take it away.
The hot seat index, I want you to give a number 1 through 10, 10 being the hottest, 1 being ice cold. On the following fringe roster players for the Vikings, I think they are all kind of right on that brim of being on the 53-man roster, starting with second-year linebacker Chaz Surratt. I think he was a third-round pick in 2021. What do you make of his hot seat index?
So, how hot is Chaz Surratt? It's a 9. It's like Sriracha. It's a 9. Like, he is on the hottest seat. One, from a special team standpoint, I think automatically your draft pick of Brian Asamoah takes him out of there. Brian Asamoah being a guy that people had him graded as a, late first, second round guy. So a lot of teams liked him. I talked to the coach, linebackers coach, and he said they wanted him. Speed, they call him slim, long, fast. Reminds him of a rover where you can put him kind of in the deep middle because he can run. You can put him in the flat and let him cover a tight end because you're not worried about him covering and cover a running back. So he gives you a lot of position flexibility. He can also get after the quarterback. So that's why I put Chaz Surratt at a 9.
Yeah, I get that same vibe too. I just feel like they've got plenty of linebackers, and if Surratt didn't play last year at all, he's not going to have that advantage of experience. So moving on, I want to try to get to 5 of these. How about Dan Chasena, the special teams guy for the last 2 years, entering his 3rd season? Wide receiver, Dan Chasena, hot seat index.
Yeah, so, I'm not going to name the receivers that I don't think not saying they don't matter, but I think they're going to be either practice squad guys or they're going to have some work cut out for them. So when you look at Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, that's your 3. So those are your 3 guys. And then you want to throw in some guys to help out. So from there, I'm going to say Albert Wilson. I think Albert Wilson coming in. Now it's going to be health concerns. How healthy is he? I think Albert Wilson possibly is in that 4 or 5 spot. I also want to say BC Johnson and then Jalen Naylor. So those, and this is the key. Albert Wilson being an 8th-year guy, I think a Smear Marset can upset him. He can get him out of here. Speed, been here already, comfortable with Kirk Cousins, knows Keenan McCardell, so he's been coached by him. So Albert Wilson is that fringe guy, but he's also an 8th-year guy, so he knows how to be a pro. Jalen Naylor is an easy guy you can put on the practice squad, so he's here. The question is going to be special teams, and this is where I think Dan Chasena is going to have an issue this year. When you look at a guy like Brian Asamoah, who's going to be a big-time special teams guy, you got some running backs you want to keep. So do you try to turn those guys into special teams guys? And do you really need 7 receivers? So then is it Jalen Naylor to practice squad and you roll with 6 and Chasena as your 6th receiver? That's what's going to come down to. But I'd say with his special teams ability, I don't know if he would be active every week because, again, this practice squad now is more fluid with COVID and with just the new NFL rules. I'd say his hot seat number is going to be a 6. I think he's hot, but he can definitely go out there and show these coaches his speed, and maybe in this new offense where they stretch the field, he's a guy they need.
Yeah, what number does he wear? 85? I think it's about an 8.5. I think his hot seat is his number. I just think that there are too many promising receivers on this roster for you to not roster one of them in favor of Chasena. He's not really a wide receiver. He is a special teams guy solely, and I'm not sure that their new special teams coordinator is going to value him the same way that the previous regime did. Moving on. But first, actually, we're going to tell you about betonline.net, your number one source for all betting needs and sports info. Find the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs, which have now concluded, and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. They're the best spot for podcasts and news about the seasons. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's do one more. How about Oli Udoh, former starting right guard, last year of his contract. He's not the starter anymore. What's his hot seat index?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with, I'm just going to go out there. We have no idea. I think Wyatt Davis gets better. He becomes a perennial backup, maybe a swing guard guy they can use, maybe in this season system. I think Ed Ingram, we know he's going to be fine. I think Oli Udoh, he's got to be up there because of just some of the issues that we saw. The length at 6'6" makes him a little bit tall for a guard, where you see more guards tend to be in that 6'4", 6'3" range because they want to be squatty and be able to really attack. But at 6'6", 320, he's kind of that longer guard, but he got pushed back a lot in the Kirk's lap. And I know, clean pocket, 93% quarterback, that's what you want. A 93 grade quarterback with a clean pocket, you got to have better guard play. And so I put him on a 9. I think he's on a 9 because these coaches, they've heard it, they've seen it, and if they're bringing in guys that they like, those probably are the guys that are going to make it. So I put him at a 9.
So I'm going to put him at about a 7.5, and here's why I think it's a little less hot, is because who is your next Rashad Hill? You need a swing tackle. Is it Vidarian Lowe? He's a rookie. You don't really know what you have in him yet. Is it Blake Brandel? He's played very sparingly. Is it Oli Udoh? He's got that tackle body. He's got that tackle experience a little bit, at least in practice. Could he be the next Rashad Hill? If that's a role that they have earmarked for him, then I think he's got a decent chance. But last year of his contract scares me because that's the point where a lot of guys get that camp cut kind of designation and they go with someone younger. So I think he's in trouble. I don't think he's flaming like hot on the hot seat, though.
Yeah, because Vidarian Lowe is literally the exact same size, 6'6", 320, and he is a tackle. So if you bought in all these guards, I think Wyatt Davis looked really good in training camp. And I got this story, I think, from Coach Mason said this, and it was like Woody Hayes was his coach at Ohio State, and he said he told a guy how to do a play 1,000 times, and the guy got in the game and still messed it up. And Coach Mason stood up and said, man, I told him 1,000 times how to run this play, and he keeps messing it up. And Woody Hayes looked at Coach Mason and said, well, that's your fault. You're a horrible teacher. If you taught somebody something 1,000 times, they still can't get it, you got to find a better way to teach. And I think that's what happens is so many coaches get stuck in their ways and they think this is the way you have to learn it. If you can't learn it, you can't do it. And then you have guys like PJ Fleck who say, look, I got 144 third graders on this team, and that's how I treat them. I'm going to teach each guy a different way if I have to, because I want to make sure they get it. And I think that's what this new regime is. It's about getting the guys to do what they need them to do and finding out how they learn best. And we will see. But I think that's going to be the key when you have so many guys that have that academia type of mentality of how do I teach this guy to get it right? Maybe that's what turns it around for some of these guys, where they're going to be taught the right way. And I think maybe Wyatt Davis and I had Ryan Monis on when I did a radio show, and he said the same thing. He said it's tough for guards that are not first-round draft picks to come in early and just be ready to go. It takes time. And so maybe Wyatt Davis is just going to take him time. And he went to Ohio State, though. He went to the Ohio State. So a lot of NFL guys come from there. So we'll see. But up next, we got the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Stay tuned for that. Well, it's that time of the show. Up next, the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. My producer, Sam Ekstrom, take it away.
Yeah, so we talked about the Vikings linebackers a little bit in the previous segment. If you missed that, go back and watch on YouTube. But Kevin Seifert of ESPN.com wrote about one standout Viking that he observed during the offseason program, and he focused on rookie Brian Asamoah, the young linebacker. So what do you think his role is going to be this year, Ron?
I think he's going to be a sub-package linebacker. He's going to come in on passing downs. He's going to play a lot of special teams. But he's going to be a sub-package guy, and then he's going to be a filling guy too, because when you think about staying fresh, if you have guys that you think you can get out of them what you can get out of other guys, meaning if I put Brian Asamoah in next to Eric Kendricks and I can pull Jordan Hicks out for a minute and I'm going to get similar production, why not do that? Or vice versa. If I can put Brian Asamoah as like my outside linebacker nickel and he's going to cover the tight end in this package, call it, and Danielle Hunter now becomes my 5 technique, not my outside linebacker, and I put Brian Asamoah outside of Danielle Hunter and I can get similar production, why not do it? The kid played at Oklahoma. I mean, another group of guys that when you come out of there, you're ready to play. You know, you're well coached. You have a lot of NFL guys out of there as well, from the offense and the defensive side. He went up against the best of the best every week. And again, another guy that when he gets to eating and get to lifting and you grow, because 20 to 21, 22-year-olds, you know, you think you're grown. And then you look like I look back on myself at 21, 22, and I thought I was grown. And I'm like, man, I look like a little kid. You know, I didn't have facial hair. I mean, I had a little bit of a beard, but didn't really have one. I had a little bit of a mustache. Body was strong, but wasn't like cut up yet. You look at T.O. as a rookie, and then you look at T.O. as a 5th-year guy. I mean, that was night and day as well. That dude was like I don't know if he ate the weights or it just body type. You just get older. You start to mature. A guy like Brian Asamoah, I think that's going to be his role. I think he's going to play a lot. He's going to be a big-time special teams guy, but he's also going to be a big-time sub-package guy that you can bring him in and not have to worry about a drop-off in play like you did some guys in the past.
Yeah, and I do wonder, too, because they claim that they're going to have multiple looks. If they are going to show some 4-3 looks where they've got 4 down linemen and they've got a 3rd linebacker on the field, who's that going to be? Maybe Asamoah has a chance to be that guy in some of those sub packages. Before I get to the next question, I'm going to tell you about Rock Auto. Ron, I'm not a big auto parts guy. I'm a little uncomfortable going to the store, standing in line, wandering the aisles aimlessly, not knowing what I'm looking for. It's a lot comfier to visit rockauto.com at home, where you can save time and money. And why would you spend 30, 50, 100% more on products in the chain store or car dealership when you can just visit the family business, Rock Auto, and rockauto.com, helping do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They've got everything you need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. And let me pivot to Twins Guardians. The Twins go in 2 games ahead to a 5-game series, and they come out 3 games ahead from the opener, an 11-1 drubbing of the Guardians. Sonny Gray the win. 3 hits from Urshela, 3 hits from Sanchez, including a home run, 3 hits from Kirilloff. Big night for the Twins offense, Ron.
Yeah, so one or two things. I hate big wins like that because then you relax and you feel like, all right, this is our series now. This is our time. I hope that they just shellac them the next 4 games because you can literally put a 7-game gap in between you and second. That's a huge mental, like, breath of fresh air. Like, oh my goodness, we can relax now. When you look at pitching, I mean, you got some nasty pitchers in there. I mean, throwing 100-mile-an-hour splinker, like, you got some nasty pitches. So you got, and the pitching coach goes, so maybe, like I said, maybe the pitching coach leaving midseason becomes their major league moment where they're like, you know what, let's show our pitching coach, you know, he left us. Let's show him we didn't need him anyway. Hopefully maybe that's the boost they needed for their pitching to just, snap and say, look, let's go. But yeah, to go up 3 games now, because I said this 5-game series, they got 2 out of 3 from the Rockies. That was huge as well, because if they had lost any of those, they would be behind. Those 2 out of 3 gave them that 2-game lead, and then they turn around now and got another one from the Guardians. And so these next 4, winning them all would be great, but if they can get 3 out of the next 4, that gives them a breath. That's 6 games ahead in first place. That has them going into the next series with a little bit more like, okay, we got a cushion. But I think that was huge. They just can't have a letdown. Now, like you said, there's a doubleheader. It's tough to win a doubleheader, but it's also not, because if you win the first game in a doubleheader, the other team is even tighter now because they're like, oh, man, we just lost to these dudes and we got to turn around and play them in an hour or whatever it is, 40 minutes. So I think that's going to be the key for the Twins. And then if I'm not mistaken, right, doubleheaders are only 7 innings, correct?
I think they changed it back to 9. I think that was a
Okay.
COVID thing, but I think they're back to 9 now. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a long day to have to play 2 9-inning games. Because I thought, or maybe it's a run thing. If you have so many runs after 7, maybe they call it. But because I was in Detroit when they did that with the Tigers and the Twins. But yeah, maybe that's the way they go. Is like it's going to be, we can get these 2 here. And if we pull these 2 off, now we're 5 games, and then we still got 2 more games to play. That's a huge mental I can breathe. But yeah, I think the Twins, that was a huge win. They needed that. Pitchers, when you see your batters batting like that, it's so much easier to go pitch knowing you have girls. Sorry, I'm talking about my daughter's team now, but knowing you can pitch when you have guys that can hit the ball like that.
The biggest win the Twins had was that 1-0 win last, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, over the Guardians, just to snap the losing streak. They kept kind of afloat in that top spot in the division, and now they've got some cushion. So that's great. Last one, Adrian Peterson's going to be boxing Le'Veon Bell in LA next month. That was kind of a jarring headline, but who you got in a fight between once great running backs?
Well, I feel like that's a bull versus a horse. Like Le'Veon Bell's a horse. He's a nice galloping. I mean, you saw his running style. It was pretty. He was not a bruiser. He was a pretty runner. He sat back behind the line of scrimmage for 3 seconds, letting the line go, and then he would just all of a sudden go from 0 to 60. He's a horse. He can get out. He's a quarter horse. He can get out fast. But he's smooth with it. His mane is all, his body everything's smooth. Like he's a smooth quarter horse. Adrian Peterson is a bull. Like, I don't ever seen a bull in the China shop. I don't think they let bulls in China shops, but that's what I imagine when I see Adrian Peterson run. And my guess is, if you're a smooth runner, you're probably a smooth fighter. If you're a bull in a China shop runner, you're a bull in a China shop fighter. Now, 2 things with a bull, though. There's the matador. The matador smooth. The matador waits, plays around with the bull, and then slays him, which is a terrible sport, but slays him. Adrian Peterson, I think, will beat Le'Veon Bell, or can beat Le'Veon Bell, but Adrian Peterson cannot be a bull at all times. You have to have that power. You have to have that ability. You cannot you can't run in and let Le'Veon Bell sidestep you and then just drop you, because he is strong. They're both 2 big, strong dudes that one clean shot is going to knock somebody out. I don't know how serious they're going to take it. I don't know if they're going to be for real, like Nate Robinson, some of these guys fights, or it's going to be more of a charity type thing. Who knows what you're going to get out of this, because you're starting to see this more and more where guys are just jumping into the ring and making money doing it. But yeah, I would say Adrian Peterson over Le'Veon Bell.
I would not have guessed that those guys were the same size. I mean, I just looked up. They're both 6'1", 220, 225.
Yeah.
I would have assumed that Bell was a couple inches shorter and 20 pounds lighter than Peterson.
No, he's definitely tall. He was tall. I thought he was taller than AP.
Yeah. No, so the matchup actually works size-wise. Peterson's kind of got that brute strength, and people talk about the grip that he has, right? But Bell seems like a little bit more of a bob and weave kind of athletic build, and I'm probably won't watch it, but I'm curious to see what the result is.
We'll see the highlights.
Yeah.
Well, that'll do it for the Ron Johnson Show. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. We want to thank you guys for joining us today. Please continue to subscribe on YouTube, share, like, comment. Also, wherever you get your podcasts, you can download, take us wherever you go. Well, that'll do it for us today. Thank you.